I would say, at least in the early phases, you want to, one, say a lot of yes, because sometimes a lot of yes puts you in the right rooms.
Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to the Deal Maker Show. So today I'm actually very excited about the founder that we have joining us. You know, he is a founder that has been around the block when it comes to really understanding how really successful companies operate on some of those trades, and now he's doing it. You know, on his own. You know, he's now with this startup that he's launched, and we're going to be talking about the building, the scaling, the financing, you name it. And so again, brace yourself for a very, very inspiring conversation. And without further ado, let's welcome our guest today, Tikue Anazodo. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So originally from Nigeria, Tikue. So give us a walk through memory lane. How was life growing up for you?
Life was great. Like I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, went to a boarding school, an American boarding school growing up, and then ended up in the US in 2009, where I came out to study computer science at Columbia.
That's amazing. How do you land in Colombia? I mean, this New York City is quite a bit far from Lagos. So what was that thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting because I picked Columbia specifically because at the time I was also writing a book that I ended up self-publishing, and I wanted to be in the publishing capital of the world in a school where I could also study computer science. So it was like a weird combination of things I was looking for, and Columbia was the best school for that.
So how was it to like being exposed to the innovation, the ambition, the all of that? Because as a result, really of Colombia, you know, you really have the opportunity to get into tech, you know, as well, and starting to work with some of really known companies globally.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a really great opportunity for me because, again, coming from Nigeria and coming to Columbia University, uh, I think I got exposed to a lot of smart people who, like, for context, I had never written a line of code before I went to college. And turns out that a lot of people who were studying computer science in my year had been writing code for a lot of years. So I got really deep into just being excited about building things, and working with a lot of people who were building things. And Columbia was also a good segue into Silicon Valley because there are a lot of Silicon Valley type companies that always used to interact with us, like in the application development initiative that I was in at Columbia University. But yeah, it was a great segue into really being able to see and understand what I could do with technology.
And now, in terms of technology and problem solving, you know, because you study computer science, I'm wondering, like, where does the spirit of problem solving come from for you?
Um, I I think there's just a, like, growing up in Nigeria where, like, a lot of, I would say over 80% of people in Nigeria are actually entrepreneurial, because it's not a, like, in the US, you many people have jobs. In Nigeria, most people actually just start some sort of form of company. That's how most people are able to make incomes. And so that was naturally embedded in my life growing up, that everybody around me actually was not employed at a company, but started a company. And the technology aspect of it was really cool because I think the first time I started interacting with computers and the internet, just realizing that you could build something that is not localized, that you can build something, put it on the internet, and a lot of people can use it, and it can actually solve problems from people like in different parts of the world. Most of the software I was using in Nigeria was built by people in the US. And I thought that just understanding the fact that I could actually build software that was used by people that were not around me was a new concept when I was growing up, and it was something that I wanted to lean more into. So again, when I went to go study computer science, I didn't really know what it meant to write code, but I knew that it was a very scaled way for me to conceptualize the entrepreneurship that I wanted to do.
Now, before you started with Kudos, it's unbelievable, like the caliber of companies that you've worked at. I mean, we're talking about Microsoft, Google, YouTube, Affirm, Shopify. I mean, it's like the who is who in terms of companies. I mean, what were you trying to do? Like really preparing yourself to become an entrepreneur and cover every single angle, or what was really the thinking, you know, before? Because I mean, it took some time, it took some experience for you to be okay with being with the unknown. So what was that journey? You know, like why, you know, that sequence of events? What did it take so long for you to get going as a founder?
Yeah, I think there's a simple component, and then there are all the things that I learned. So first of all, I was an immigrant, so it's a lot more straightforward to actually go work for a big company that will sponsor your green card.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
so, so that piece, I did actually work for a bunch of big companies that made my immigration process simpler. But beyond that, I think I just got to learn. I wanted to learn about different types of things at scale, and like joining Microsoft and building like TV, like IPTV products at scale that were used by tens of millions of people, and actually understanding what it meant to deploy software at that kind of scale. Going to Google, where I helped launch Google Pay's online product, and actually just seeing the combination of, because when you're at a big company, you're not just you have to earn the right to deploy to scale, because Google has billions of users, and you don't just build software and launch it. There's so many internal processes that you have to navigate. There are all these things you have to start to think about, like what are the legal implications if a person does X and Y happens. And I think that helped me sharpen the way I thought about product in general. It also was a very great way to get quick feedback at scale, because when you push something and like 10 million people are using it instantly, you get data signals that help you refine how you think about making products better. So I think also Google, I would say, was the place that I worked at that had the most world-class product people that I've ever interacted with. And many of those Google product people end up like going to go start companies all over the Silicon Valley area. But I think just being able to be around some people, a lot of people that were very intelligent, being able to have the ability to deploy products at a certain scale, and also starting to learn about problems that I thought were interesting to solve. Because a lot of what we ended up building with Kudos was inspiration from working at Google Pay and Affirm. And my co-founder has actually worked at all the same companies as me for the last 10 years. So we were looking at different problems from different angles. From my end, just working at Google Pay and Affirm, I learned that building a wallet that actually works for the consumer is something that most of the large wallets were not really addressing. They were largely building wallets that were helping merchants drive conversions. And I consistently wanted to get to a place where I could build a wallet that really solved problems, like helped consumers earn and save more money without them having to do any work. So yeah, I think that journey was important to understand how to deploy products at scale, how to iterate, like learn from feedback and iterate. And also just in general, it was part of the inspiration for how we got to thinking about Kudos specifically and the problem we're solving.
So let's talk about Kudos then, because I mean, obviously you did a little bit of, as you were saying, whether it was a firm or you had that exposure to the regulatory hurdles too that it's involved when you're building products of this nature. But what were the immediate steps that needed to happen for you to bring Kudos to life?
Yeah, so we started Kudos in 2021. We were fortunate in that when we were leaving Affirm, we actually got funding from like Max Levchin, who was the founder of Affirm and PayPal, and we got funding from QED and a few other like Patron and a few other firms right out of the gate. And we started building. The goal was we launched Kudos within launched an alpha version of Kudos within 2 months. Started getting feedback. I think we initially started Kudos as a shopping extension that helped you pick the best card at checkout, and but we kind of took this iterative approach where we knew the ultimate destination we wanted to get to was a self-driving wallet, as we called it at that time, that just automatically handled money for you. And we thought that the extension at checkout was a great wedge into that problem. And over the course of time, we iterated on, like, we learned things and we iterated towards the product that we have today.
So then let's say talk about the product that you have today. What is
Yeah.
the business model of Kudos? How do you guys make money?
We make money in three ways. So the first business model we launched was our merchant commission business model. So we have a product called Kudos Boost, where when you shop on about 15,000 partner stores, including eBay, Expedia, you get additional cash back. And that actually currently goes 100% back to the consumer. So that's like, if you have ever used a product like Rakuten or Honey at PayPal, which are a third of our team actually used to work at Honey at PayPal. That's the first component. We get commissions from merchants and we pass those on to the consumer. The second business model is we recommend new financial products to people, specifically credit cards, that align with your actual spending habits. So a lot of people who come to Kudos have high credit scores, have high spend, and are looking for already have financial products that maybe work for them. But Kudos analyzes your spending habits and is able to tell you things like, hey, you spent $5,000 on rent in the last month. If you had the built card, you would have earned this much. Or we saw that you spent $7,000 on dining in the last year. Here are some things that you can do. Like, here's a card that would have actually earned you $300 incrementally if you had it in your wallet. The third business model is we have premium subscriptions that we launched about a month ago, and it's been growing really fast. And the sense of premium subscriptions is we are launching a lot of agentic features that just do things for users to help them earn and save more money. One we launched last week was called Automated Offer Activation, where your credit cards have all these offers on popular places you shop at, like Amazon, that you have to go manually activate. And there are hundreds of them that show up every week. Now, Kudos helps you activate them and reminds you to use them. And people save an average of about $750 a year from those types of offers. In about 2 weeks, we're going to launch some agentic features that help you negotiate your bills. So we deploy a voice agent. If you have an Xfinity bill that's super high, rather than calling Xfinity and spending hours on the phone with them, we deploy an agent to actually go have the call on your behalf and negotiate down your bill. And in our early testing, we're seeing people saving an average of about $250 a year. And so that's the third business model, really having people pay for these agentic features that unlock money automatically for them, and ultimately is a no-brainer.
Now, what would you say that for you was the turning the corner, event? If you had to pinpoint, like one moment where you were like, "Wow, I think we're into something here."
I would say probably when because there's a little bit of like with consumer, there Y Combinator says this thing where a lot of people think that when they launch their product, everybody is going to like jump at it, and nobody actually cares for the most part. And so I think we launched a lot of features, and gradually, I think it was about 2 years ago when we had a rapid scale from 5,000 users to 100,000 users, was when we launched our Kudos Boost feature. That was the system was, we're going to give you 100% of the rewards of the commissions that we get back from merchants, and we're going to be Rakuten. And that was like the first moment. And I think over the course of that moment, what we learned from our members was that people just wanted to have easy ways to earn and save more money. And anything that we could do incrementally for them was where the value unlock came in. And so I think over the course of time, like when we launched our premium and we launched like card linked offers last week, that has also been another explosive feature, because it's just money that people like would typically not take advantage of, but does not change the way they currently spend today. And so that's the thing that I think we've started to hone in on very aggressively as a business. We're not trying to change the way you spend. We're just trying to make sure that based on the way you spend, every time you spend, you get more money back.
You were talking before about the capital raising, whether it was Max Levchan, co-founder of Affirm, or PayPal, or, for example, QED. How has been to the journey of raising money? Because going from raising from individuals to institutionals, how has that been, for you as well?
Yeah, it's not been a straight path, definitely, because the 20 million that we've raised, it's been over we've raised a little bit of capital every year, with 4 million in the first year, and then 3 million in the second year, 10 million third year, and then 4 million, like 3 million fourth year. And part of it is that when we raised in 2021, the market had certain expectations for what the next round would be, like what the milestones for the next round were. But then over the last 4 years, every year those expectations have actually changed, because you go into 2022 and the market was anti-fintech, anti-consumer. And so the bar to actually be a successful consumer company went really high. And we were very fortunate in that, like 2022, we raised a bridge from our existing investors. And our existing investors have actually been a very big part of our story through this journey, because QED had a really small check in our first round, a slightly bigger check in our second round, and then led our Series A 2 years ago. So QED ended up leading our Series A. When we had that big inflection point 2 years ago, we were about to go to market. QED was already an existing investor, and they preempted the Series A. And then last year we did a small bridge, and right now we are actually closing a strategic round. But it's kind of been one thing that we've had to change our mindsets on, which I think is healthy, is I think when we started, we used to think more very aggressively about what is the next milestone and what are the things that we need to do to get to the next milestone, which is an important thing I think to think about. But over time, I think we started to spend a lot more time thinking about how do we build a business that actually takes off. Because, and when I say take off, I mean there's this concept of being perpetually on the runway. Kira Boy said it on a podcast that I thought was really interesting, is that most businesses in startup land only think about runway. But at some point, you want to kind of take off where the business has a path to cash flow positivity, where you are able to dictate the terms on which you raise around. And that's the kind of the mindset that we're in as a business right now, where we're bringing all the revenue levers are now kind of in place. In the first 2-3 years of the business, we really focused on building a great product and trying to figure out how to grow that product. In the last year and a half, we've started to focus on actually building the monetization engine, and that's working. And so that's something we're really focused on scaling going forward, so that even as we think about future rounds of capital, we go with a lot more leverage, because our business doesn't necessarily need the capital, but the capital is fuel that actually accelerates something that works really well.
Now, this is super interesting. Obviously, when these people invest, they're investing on a vision. They're betting on you guys. I think that when we're thinking about the vision, if you were to go to sleep tonight
Mm-hmm.
and you wake up in a world, Tikue, that is the vision is fully realized. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that world is beautiful, but what does that world look like?
So for Kudos, it's really that the true self-driving wallet, where your wallet, you close your app, you close the Kudos app, and you open it up, and it just tells you that Kudos has gone to go get money for you. So Kudos has detected that your bill is higher than it should be, and Kudos just deployed an agent to go negotiate down your bill, and you have $200 in savings. Or Kudos has seen that you've been spending a lot on a store, where we went to go negotiate with the you were spending a lot of Nike, or you're buying a lot of furniture, and our agents go negotiate a better rate for you, so you get more cash back at Nike. So those are the types of things where we want your wallet to be very proactive as opposed to reactive, and that's what we're building towards right now.
So now imagine that I put you into a time machine and
Mm-hmm.
I bring you back in time. I bring you back to, when you were still, maybe 2021, where you're thinking about like doing something of your own, and
Mm-hmm.
you're able to give that younger self one piece of advice as you're coming out after giving your notice. And being able to give that younger self one piece of advice before launching a business. What would that be and why, given what you know now?
I would actually think about monetization earlier, because we had a strategy for monetization, but because we were a consumer product, the goal was, let's figure out scale, and then we'll start to layer on monetization. I would actually probably charge for the product from day one, because I think it actually gets you to optimize towards building a product that people explicitly want to use. And you can layer on all the other business models. But I think we kind of did it in reverse, where we wanted to build something and figure out what people cared about, and then we scaled that thing, and then we started to layer on the merchant business model, the issuer business model, and then we layered on premium. I think what it did was, part of that journey, we ended up acquiring a lot of users that were actually not the right users for Kudos. Because if you're optimizing around just acquiring people who just register for the product, or who use it for a number of days or whatever, some of those people actually don't necessarily love the product you're building. I think the best way to figure out who loves your product is to charge them for it. So that's the one thing I think I would do differently. I would optimize towards charging people from like super early in the product life cycle, so that we're building the highest value things for those users.
Now, as they say, your network is your net worth. And, you and I were both immigrants, in this country. And it's not easy, to come here, to build, you know, your relationships from nothing. It's new countries, a new place. There's probably a bunch of people that are listening to us. A bunch of people that maybe are outside of the U.S. Maybe some people in Nigeria that are thinking about coming to the U.S. or maybe from Spain. You never know. I guess it could be either people coming here or maybe people just like thinking about giving their notice at work and just venturing into building a startup from nothing or whatever, even if it's not a startup, but a business from nothing. How would you tell them to go about being intentional when it comes to building their networks?
I would say, at least in the early phases, you want to one say a lot of yes, because it sometimes a lot of yes puts you in the right rooms. And there is a there, I think there's value in being strategic, but not always seeming not being calculated. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the best relationships that I think actually translated over time into making it easy for me to fundraise was, like, I interacted with people, I created value for those people. And when it came time to fundraise, it was a straightforward conversation. This is a person who has created value in ways that we understand and we can underwrite, and we believe that this person is going to create a lot of value for the business that they build for themselves. And so I would say, just being very intentional in how you think about creating value for the people that you're around. I think another thing that was very useful is just being around the right people. I think going to Colombia definitely helped a lot with being around a lot of the right people. And I think going to Silicon Valley, I don't live in the Bay Area right now anymore, but I lived there for like 9 years. And I don't think I would have been able to build Kudos without living in San Francisco for 9 years, because there's just a lot of symbiosis with just being around a lot of people who are building things, a lot of people who are funding things. Another thing that I always say is, the the actual relationships you build when you're in a job are very important, and you want to do your best possible job in a job that you're doing. Because all my last, like, part of my fundraising being simple was, Max Levchin was one of my bosses at Affirm, and I did a great job at what I did at Affirm. All my previous managers and like execs were actually angel investors in Kudos. A lot of the introductions that I got into the venture capital ecosystem were from people who were execs at companies I had worked in the past. Because venture is also a trust-based business. Like, somebody is wiring a bunch of millions to you and they met you 2 weeks ago. The trust needs to be baked into something that has a little bit more tangibility to it. And that tangibility for me tended to just be that I had done a reasonably good job at all the companies I had worked at. I had not burnt any relationships. And so when it was time to raise capital, people believed that the thing I was going to do was going to be at least as good or better than the things I had done in the past.
We were talking before about problem solving, and I think that with Kudos, you have two things that are major, right? I mean, when it comes to uncertainty, one, building a hyper growth company, it's uncertain as it is. But then also you have the other layer of complexity to that, which is that you're operating in a very heavily regulated segment. So, how have you been able to go about balancing both and just being able to just push forward no matter what?
Yeah, I think this is one of those areas where working an actual job before I started Kudos helped a lot. Because I mean, Google Pay, it was heavily regulated, but Affirm was actually insanely heavily regulated as a business, because it's also a lending business. It's not just a fintech business. And so everything I had to do, I had to go through multiple layers of legal. And so there are some really basic things that every time we build a product, we think about. Like, UDAP is one of the biggest things in fintech, like just not being deceptive in the claims that you make, because fintech products can actually make very extreme claims, like, we guarantee that you will save $500, or but we just try not to. We try to work within a framework that we understand, and in places where we have counsel that we work closely with on a lot of launches that we do, that we feel like could be out of the boundaries. But then also, as a startup, we have to be a little bit more flexible than the Affirm or the Google can be. So I think a lot of what we've had to figure out over the years, is like how to navigate that boundary. So I'll give you a concrete example. With a lot of our growth has actually come from the fact that we invest heavily into creating content in places like TikTok, Instagram, but we work with card issuers that are heavily regulated. And those card issuers restrict us from mentioning card names or showing card art in the videos that we make. And when we started our TikToks, initially, the most viral videos were us actually talking about specific credit cards, like, hey, look at the Amex Platinum, look at all the benefits that you can get on this card. And when we started working with these issuers and we came within their compliance restrictions, we had to like pivot the way we talked about like credit cards. Like, for instance, we are allowed to say the big blue bank with Chase, where we're talking about Chase cards on Instagram. It's tough, but it's something that helps still get similar type of engagement. And there are things like we had to build an automation flow where people who are more interested in learning more about certain things we say have to reply to our post on Instagram, and then the automation sends them details that they need directly in their inboxes. And those details we cannot say directly on the videos. So, but there are things like that. Again, I knew the implications of building on the wrong side of the law and the wrong side of regulation. So as we've kind of gotten deeper into some of these compliance restrictions, we've had to figure out how to still stay nimble as a startup, but also stay within all the compliance that's required in our industry.
Amazing. So, Tikue, this is absolutely amazing. For the people that are listening that would love to reach out and say hi or learn more about Kudos, what would you tell them?
You can shoot me an email, Tikue at Join Kudos. And yeah, I mean, especially if you have any questions about the product, you can shoot me an email directly.
Amazing. Well, Tikue, it has been an absolute honor to have you with us on the Deal Maker Show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Alejandro.